Cameron, president of DryStaff, a technology recruiting firm in Elmhurst, will explore specific, easy-to-learn and apply sales techniques you can use in all your interviews to get more offers. In a presentation titled, Interview Strategies to Effectively Sell Yourself. Let's give a warm St. Thomas welcome to Paul Cameron.
And I'm going to try to work with this PowerPoint here today. I have a wonderful new administrative assistant starting on Monday, but that means she started on Monday. And I did this myself. I usually have a handout with this presentation, so if you can kind of work with me, hopefully I think it should work well. But as you mentioned, I am a technology recruiter. Essentially, I'm a headhunter. That is maybe a more common term. No, we're not offended by that. For those of you who have no idea what a headhunter is or what a headhunter does, that's okay. I understand there's a lot of people who really have no idea what the heck we do for a living. Essentially, my job is to go out and find positions just like you're doing, except I have to find positions that are so difficult to fill that the company is willing to pay me a fee to go and find that person. And then I go out and find that person, send them to the interview, and then I have to hope that they get the job. And the reason I have to hope that they get the job is because I work on 100% commission. So if my candidate doesn't get the job, I'm not going to be a headhunter for very long. And there's a catch to this. They usually have another headhunter that they're using, or maybe 2 or 3 headhunters that they're using, and they're posting an ad, and they have some sort of an internal employee referral program going on. There's a lot of different sources for resumes that they're bringing in. But my candidate still needs to get the job or I don't get paid. So I figured out early on in my career, if I could figure out how to master the skill of interviewing and come up with a way to teach it to people in such a way that they can remember it and use it immediately, then they're going to get more offers than their competition, and subsequently I'm going to make more placements than my competition, and I'm going to be a headhunter for a very long time, which seems to be working out. Earlier this year, I actually celebrated my 11-year anniversary as a headhunter here in Chicago, again working on our 100% commission. The national average for the interview to hire ratio, at least as of last year, maybe a little bit more as of this year given the current economy, but the national average is 7 to 1. So for every 7 interviews that the average recruiter sets up, they make 1 placement. Mine is 3 to 1. And frankly, it's never going to get any better than that. It's never going to go to 2 to 1 or to 1 to 1, because for every open job that I get, I cover my jobs. I send them 3 people. They can't all 3 get the job. Okay, so now why am I telling you this? Well, because as we get to certain techniques throughout this presentation and you start thinking to yourself, I don't know if I could say that, or that would never work. Is he crazy? Let's get back to the statistics here that my interview to hire ratio is 3 to 1. These tools work if you use them. But similar to going to Home Depot and buying a saw, you know, you go buy the saw, the board isn't just going to fall into 2 pieces. You have to use the saw. All right, you've got to use these tools for them to work. Okay? The biggest challenge I see facing job seekers today, quite frankly, is just this huge misconception. You know, you spend so much time working on your resume, making sure your resume is just absolutely perfect, right? You go over it 100 times, maybe you have somebody you paid to help you put it together, which is a very good idea. You should absolutely do that. Then you spend all this time researching the right companies and making sure you're calling the right places and you're going to the right networking groups. Spend a lot of time doing all that and making sure that that's just right. Again, very good idea. You should do that. And then you land the interview. And it's like, oh, yes, I got the interview. And then we go into this whole other mindset. Tell me if this sounds familiar. You start saying things like, well, I'm just going to go in there and I'm going to tell them who I am. You know, I'm just going to tell them what I can do. I'm not going to misrepresent myself in any way. I'm just going to tell them what I can do, and if I'm qualified, they'll hire me. And if I'm not, then they won't, and so be it. So we'll just hope for the best. Okay, maybe that's true. You know, if you're qualified, they'll hire you, and if you're not qualified, they won't hire you. But there sure are an awful lot of people who are fully qualified who are not getting jobs. And likewise, there is a ton of people who are not qualified who are getting jobs. And the reason that is the simple truth is people hire people they like. A lot of times over the most qualified person. Now, there's a study done by Robert Half not too long ago that 49%, Robert Half is a very large recruiting company, for those unfamiliar, generalist firm. And they surveyed all the hiring managers that they work with. 49% of them said they made their hiring decisions based on a gut feeling about the candidate. Okay, that's not fair, right? Now we're getting back into a popularity contest type of a scenario. But the good news about this is that the gut feeling that you leave them with, your likability factor, is totally controllable. You can control that by using some very simple selling techniques and advanced and subtle selling techniques. You can affect the gut feeling that you leave these employers with. I approach interviewing very much from a salesperson's perspective, because there are selling techniques that those people use that affects their likability factor. You know, you think about any salesperson you know who's been a successful salesperson for a lot of years, not the salesperson who's coming to you in a bad suit trying to sell you something you don't need. I'm talking about that person you know who's been living in a very nice house, making a very nice living for a whole lot of years. That person has mastered the skill of likability. And all I've done here is taken those specific selling techniques and drop them into an interview setting so we can use them to affect your likability factor while you're in there. All right, I'll give you an example. I have one technique I call the slow pitch down the middle. Basically what this is, the way this works, is when you're doing your research before your interview, all right, look for some good news happening about that company. Something that if you worked at that company, you would be proud to know this about your organization. All right, let's say, for example, you see that their sales revenues have just skyrocketed the last couple of years. They're up like 20%. Okay? So now knowing that, in the interview, you can casually mention to the employer, you know, when I was doing my research for our meeting today, which, by the way, says, hey, I did research for our meeting today because I'm really excited about being here and I'm really interested in this opportunity. Hey, when I was doing my research for our meeting today, I noticed that your sales revenues have just gone through the roof. I mean, did you bring in a new sales team, or what's happening to cause that? Okay, that is a slow softball pitch right down the middle. Even if he wasn't intending on it, that guy's going to look around for a bat and want to knock that thing out of the park, right? He is going to feel compelled to start sharing the good news about the company with you. He's going to start selling you on the opportunity. All right, now why would you want somebody selling you on the opportunity? Obviously, you're interested, you're already there, you don't need them to sell you on it. Okay, well, think about the psychological foundation of that scenario of one person selling another person on anything. Right? The person who's doing the selling is using their own personal persuasive skills, vulnerably laying them out there, right, to achieve a specific result, which is the interest in whatever it is that person is selling. All right, so in this case, the hiring manager is using his own persuasive skills to try to interest you in the position. Now, at this point, you have a choice. You can either reject him and make him feel awful about his personal convictions, or you can start buying into what he's selling and becoming more and more interested in the opportunity based on what he's telling you. That's going to make him feel great. That's going to give him that feeling of accomplishment he set out to achieve when he started selling you on the opportunity. That's going to affect that little conversation that happens after the interview that goes something like, I don't know what it was about that person, but I really liked him. That's the gut feeling. Right? Now this whole scenario that you're in of him selling you on the opportunity and you're buying into what he's selling, and then he's positively affected and he's looking back on the conversation and thinking good things about this conversation they just had with you, that whole scenario that you're in happened because you came prepared with a slow pitch down the middle question from your research before the interview. That is an advanced selling technique, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Is everybody with me? A couple of things I want to talk about first is attitude and strategies. I know we're all adults here. You don't need somebody up here telling you need to have a good attitude, but I want to touch on this briefly because this is really the most important and most attractive attribute you have as a job seeker is your attitude. There's a couple of traps I want to tell you about that. Two of them right now you can fall into today. They're most common in job clubs. First off, no matter what time of year it is, you can always find somebody who's going to tell you why right now is a terrible time to find a job. If there's anybody in here who was looking for a position back in 06, 07, and you came to a job club, did you know that that was the best time to find a job in our history? our industry and recruiting industry had record years, even better than the 99 2000 boom, .com boom that was going on. That was the best time to find a job, but I was doing these same presentations at that time, and everybody's walking up. It's like, oh, you know, it's first quarter, right? First quarter, nobody hires you first quarter, you know, because everybody's got fresh budgets, and they're just getting ready for the new year, and nobody hires in the first quarter. In the second quarter, it's starting to get nice outside, you know, and people are start taking vacations, and it's really not a good time to find a job in the second quarter. In the third quarter, well, you got the summer slump, you know, you're coming out of, and then the kids are going back to school. They want to take those last minute vacations. Nobody's really hiring in the third quarter. The fourth quarter, well, you know, it's the holidays. So, you know, obviously nobody said, well, if they're not hiring in the first quarter, the second quarter, the third quarter, the fourth quarter, when are they hiring? There is no magic fifth quarter, right? They're hiring at some point, and I can tell you, I've been doing this for a very, very long time now. They're hiring all throughout the year. And one thing I will share with you, for anybody who believes the fourth quarter is a terrible time to find a job, I've been doing this, will be my 12th fourth quarter. Every single year, with the exception of last year because we had the big crash, every single year the fourth quarter is always my best quarter of the year. Every year. Because, one, they have a bunch of budgets that they need to use that they have not used yet. And then secondly, they want to get things done before the holiday. Let's get this done and get an offer out before the holiday. This is the time where you're going to see a job open up on Monday. It's going to be filled by Thursday. And if you're just sending your resume in by Friday, you're not going to get the job. So you need to act on these jobs as they open very, very quickly. Wow, this is just moving along without me here. How about that? All right. So the other part of it is the conversations that you're going to have. And I'm going to use you, Rich, here, if that's okay. Picture this conversation. Rich and I are networking later. Rich says, you know, what are you doing here, Paul? And I just respond to him, you know what? Actually, it's a blessing that I'm here. You should have seen the prior place that I used to work with. The guy, my old boss, he was a lunatic. I mean, he would get so upset with customers, he would pound his phone into the desk and break it. One time I'm walking out of his office, he threw his cell phone and hit the wall next to me and busted as I was walking out of the room. I mean, they are crazy. That guy was nuts. So, you know, it's kind of sad that I'm between positions right now, but I'm glad I'm out of that place. Now, Rich goes home. He talks to his wife. You should have met this tech recruiter I met today, Paul Cameron. He hated his old boss. You should have heard him going on and on about this guy. I guess he was just crazy. And then his wife says, wait a minute, Paul Cameron, tech recruiter? I'm supposed to interview a Paul Cameron tomorrow for our technical recruiting spot. Boy, am I glad you ran into him today. You don't know who you're talking to. You know, the toes you step on today may be connected to the hand you need to shake tomorrow, or however you want to finish the rest of that sentence. You just don't know who you're talking to. Anybody who comes through the lobby, anybody you're meeting here tonight, if you start complaining and moaning and telling everybody that this is a terrible time to find a job, that's being noted by people who could potentially hire you. So you really want to be careful with that. You've got to keep your attitude positive throughout the entire job search. It's the most attractive feature that you have. What I like to say is to put on the optimism of a dog. Take on the optimism of a dog. How many people in here have a dog? Okay, half the people. For those of you who don't have a dog, I suspect you've been to somebody's house who has a dog, right? Okay, so picture the scene. You're sitting around, watching TV, whatever it is, it's fairly quiet. Somebody comes over, and they start ringing the doorbell. They're there. What's the average dog do? Now, this is actually my dog, Jackson. He's a boxer. He's very, very energetic. And at our house, average dog, Jackson, gets all excited and starts barking, and he runs to the door, his tail's wagging, and he's so excited. We go and answer the door. Now, how many times when you go to answer the door, is it ever for the dog? I got this ball outside. I want to play with it. Never. It's never for the dog. But every time the doorbell rings, he goes tearing to the door because he just knows in his heart somebody came over to play with it. Right? You need to go into that every single job situation and interview with that same level of optimism. You know what? Yeah, they've had maybe 15 other people they've interviewed for this position, but they're still interviewing, which means they've been waiting for me. Now I just need to tell them why. And if you go in with that positive attitude, it's going to make such a difference for your job search. I guarantee it. The other thing I wanted to throw out there is if your strategy right now is blasting your resume all over town without tailoring it to each place that you're sending it and then hoping that somebody gets back to you, hope is not a strategy. Hope is very, very important, but it's not a plan. You need to come up with a plan, especially in this economy. Yes, there are jobs out there, but there are less of them. So you need to be specific and targeted about where you're sending your resume. Think about industries that are doing better because of this economy. You know what I mean? You think when you've got a volatile marketplace and prices are going up and down and all over the place, people are going to need to revamp their products, right? If you're not planning on going out and going out of business, you're going to need to rework your product, right? So that you can bring in more customers. Stock market, it's going up and down and all over the place. These brokerage firms are doing everything in their power right now to make sure they don't lose customers. I've placed 27 people in the trading industry alone over the last year. Figure right now we've got a lot of people who have revamped their product right now so they can stay in business. How do you let people know about that product? Maybe a company that specifically redesigns websites and makes them more useful. Those companies are doing very well right now. Maybe the advertising agencies are doing well. Not all of them. Some of them are doing really great. We've got a larger population right now of people who are retiring. We've got some great healthcare companies in this area. Companies like Beltone, for example, that manufactures hearing aids. That's a product that's going to be in demand regardless of what the stock market is doing. You need to be specific and targeted and be smart about the places that you're going after. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's get into the meat of this thing, into interviews. Again, I approach interviewing very much from a salesperson's perspective, right? Good salesperson, any good salesperson is going to start the interview out by trying to find out what the person needs, right? You can't sell anybody anything unless you know what they need. You can't solve a problem unless you know what the problem is. So you want to start your interview out by asking a question. What I recommend is by coming back and asking them, I know a little bit about this position based on what I read about on the job posting or based on what my recruiters told me. But I'm curious to find out what you would be looking for from the ideal candidate. And you want to stay focused on their opinion. If you just go into the interview saying, hey, what skills are you looking for this job? That says to them, I am totally unprepared for this. What's your name again? Where am I? Right? You want to focus on their opinion because everybody's going to have a different viewpoint of that job. What are you looking for from the ideal candidate that justifies the question? Right? Because then if they come back and say, well, I'm looking for this skill set, this work ethic, this personality, okay, tell me about yourself. Well, I've got this skill set, this work ethic, this personality, and you can tailor yourself to the position only talking about what's relevant and not talking about what's not relevant, which is very, very important. You don't want to waste time in that interview talking about skills they don't care about. All right, so you want to open up by asking that question. Using the icebreakers to your advantage. You walk in. Hey, did you find the place okay? Whatever icebreaker they give you, keep your answer positive. They don't care that you got lost on the way. They don't care that it's cold outside or it's too hot outside or it's been a really cold summer. They don't want to hear you complaining. You want to use this as an opportunity to, one, show them your positive attitude, and two, show specific interest in this company. So, did you find the place okay? Or did you have any trouble finding the place? No, not at all. Actually, I've really been looking forward to our meeting today, so I knew the route pretty well. If you didn't get a chance to ask that opening question, this is a great place to slide it in. You know, I've heard quite a bit about XYZ company from whatever source it is that I've heard about it. From what I understand about this position, it sounds very interesting. I'm curious what you would be looking for from the ideal candidate in this position. So you want to use every piece of this interview to your advantage to show them your positive attitude and show interest in this position. All right. The application. I'm jumping a little bit fast there, but one thing with the application, if this is a company that uses whiteboards a lot, those whiteboard meetings, you know, and so you got to write stuff up there and you got a group of people trying to read that, how are they going to be able to evaluate your handwriting skills in the interview? Handing you an application. So it's really important that you do take the time to write that stuff very, very legibly and make sure you never write "see resume" on there, because one, if the resume and the application separate for some reason, you know, the paperclip falls off, whatever, now it says "see resume" and I don't have a resume, well, there's a trash can. Right? And then secondly, it also just comes across as laziness, which a lot of hiring managers don't look on favorably. Okay, so we're going to jump into a couple of the common questions. And first, before I ask you what is your greatest weakness, because I want to find out what some of you say to this, so we can work on it, there's a couple of answers you definitely want to avoid. I'm bringing them up ahead of time so we don't pick on whoever gives me an answer. If it's one of these two. First off is I have no weaknesses. All right, which seems ridiculous, but a lot of people try to use it as a strength. You know, they'll say something like, well, of course I have personal weaknesses like chocolate, but when it comes to my job, I really pay a lot of attention, and I don't feel I have any weaknesses when it comes to the workplace. Everybody has weaknesses. Superman had kryptonite. Everybody has a weakness. And when you say you don't, it comes across not only as arrogant, but ignorant. And that's not an impression you want to give the employer. Okay? The second one you want to avoid is those, but it's really a strength type of answers. I'm too much of a perfectionist. I like to work too many hours. I get too focused and work too hard at the office. You might as well tell them you like to wash your boss's car too many times a week. It's not a real weakness, and they can see right through that. The reason they're asking that question is because they really want to find out, what do I need to be warned about when it comes to hiring you? But they haven't come up with a better way of asking that question. So they just come out and blatantly ask you, what's your greatest weakness, so I know about it. All right? So with this question, I'm going to give you a formula you can use that works 100% of the time. All right? Now, with this question, what's your greatest weakness, I would classify this as a negative question. All right? If you can categorize all the interview questions you get, this is a negative question. All right? And there's a million of these types of questions out there. Like, what's the one thing you hated most about your prior boss? Right? That's a horrible question. But once you recognize that it's a negative question, this is an opportunity for you to show them that you're a problem solver. Okay? The way that you do that is by coming back and identifying whatever the weakness happens to be, put it in the past tense, and then finish with how you solved that problem. All right? So if anybody in here would be willing to give me a real weakness. Somebody said, what's your greatest weakness? Before I give you this, use this formula, what would you say?
I hesitate to delegate.
You hesitate to delegate. Okay, why is that a problem?
Well, sometimes it slows down the project. If I don't incorporate the other team members right away, it can slow down the results. So I've learned to find out who my team players are, so we can work that out ahead of time.
Okay, so he said, and I don't know if everybody in the back can hear that, but he says, I hesitate to delegate, and the reason that that's a problem is because it can slow down our timelines, and maybe we fall behind on a project because I hesitated to delegate. But the way that you're handling that is finding out who the team players are. How does that resolve your ability, your hesitation on the delegation?
Well, that way I know who has the strength and the willingness to be able to accelerate that result.
Okay, to help you get it delegated faster. Okay, so we put it in this formula. What's your greatest weakness? Well, my greatest weakness used to be that I would hesitate to delegate, which would potentially cause problems on my contracts, on my projects, because we would fall behind as I'm trying to figure out who I need to delegate this information to. But the way that I've really overcome that weakness is by identifying who the team players are on this team, so that I can give it to them first, and they're going to help me get this thing moving along quicker. Here was the weakness, here's how I solved it. Does that make sense? Anybody else got a weakness that you use that we can throw in this formula? Yes? Not necessarily, because if they come back, and I knew somebody was going to bring that up, I appreciate you doing it, because I know more than one person in this room is thinking, well, if that was my weakness, what is my weakness? What if they ask me that? Very simply, it's something I need to be conscious of on a daily basis, where I can fall back into that trap when I'm aware of it, and this is how I'm working on it. So it comes back to, yes, I do have a weakness, but I'm working on it on a daily basis. Yes?
I also heard that one way to answer that is to say, whatever your weakness is, tell them a weakness that has nothing to do with the job.
Okay. Like a technology or a skill that's not related.
Exactly.
Okay. The one thing I would caution you about that, I've heard that also, is you don't know, because you just have a job description in front of you, you don't know everything that's involved in that position. So when I was hiring this administrative assistant, if she were to come back to me and say, you know what, I don't have any HTML web programming skills, and I hate web programming, I don't want any part of it, and that's a weakness that I don't enjoy working with that. Well, little do they know, we've got a radio show every week, and I rebroadcast it on our website, and guess who's putting it on our website every week? Now you just knocked yourself out of that, out of that role, so you don't know everything about the position. So I would stick with something that is real, and if you use one of those, but it's really a strength things, figure out why that's a weakness. I'm too much of a perfectionist, and that means that I spend too much time on each individual little part, which sometimes throws me behind on my timelines. But I've learned to figure out that if I throw my timeline together at the very, very beginning, and I stay on track with that big picture, that keeps me on track so that I hit my deadlines and I can get everything done right. Same thing, yes. Okay, so for everybody can hear that, one of my greatest weakness is sometimes I can get impatient in meetings that aren't focused and we're wasting time in these meetings. Okay, absolutely, that's a frustration. And I'll tell you, if you can't, I appreciate you saying that, if you can't think of a weakness, that's a great way to think of a weakness. Instead of thinking, what's my greatest weakness, what can happen at the workplace that would ever get me frustrated? All right, that can be used as a weakness. Sometimes I get frustrated when I'm at a meeting. Okay, so I don't know of any company offhand, or even if I spent a week researching, a company that doesn't have meetings that sometimes waste time. So you're going to run into that. And I promise you run into that before. Obviously, if you know that's a weakness, how do you deal with it? What do you do to not get up and throw a chair through the door? Okay. So my greatest weakness used to be that I would get frustrated in these meetings that weren't focused. But the one thing I've learned to help cope with that type of a frustration is making sure after the meeting, so I'm not embarrassing anybody in the meeting, going to them privately and telling them, hey, listen, we needed to get this, and this done, but we got off track on these things. How can we better keep this focused next time? Sounds like you did that. You overcame the weakness. You just need to be able to identify what you did. Right? Okay, so what about the why are you changing jobs? Now, I'm sure you've all heard a million times at least, you never want to speak negatively of your prior employers, right? The basic premise here is when you talk negatively of other people, it comes across negatively on you. It reflects poorly on you because you're talking negatively about them, right? What a lot of people don't take advantage of, especially in an interview setting, is that the exact opposite is also true. When you go out of your way to speak positively of other people, that reflects positively on you. That says, hey, I'm a good person. Again, keep in mind, the whole goal of the interview, even if this is on a subconscious level, is to create a positive, likable impression. It's easy to like someone who's a good person, right? Who has good character about them. So if you go out of your way to compliment them, that's going to reflect positively on you. Why are you changing jobs? Can anybody in here tell me why you left your last position if you're willing to?
Reduction in force.
Reduction in force, okay. Absolutely, nothing negative about that whatsoever. So if you went in the interview and they said, why'd you leave your last position, you would tell them, well, that was a reduction in force, right? So what if you said, you know what, it was a great company, and I really enjoyed the people that I worked with, but unfortunately there was a reduction in force, and I was caught in this layoff with about 50 other people, 100 other people, whatever it was. You and I just said the exact same thing, but I also said, I'm a good person. That's going to give me the edge towards that gut feeling. Does that make sense? What else? Yes. Wasn't a good fit. Okay. Again, not negative. It wasn't a good fit on with that position and my skill set. Starting that out with, it was a good company. I love the commute. If you didn't like the people, whatever. You know what? It was a great commute. I love the technology that was. You took the job for some reason. There's something you got to like about the place. Talk about what you liked about it. Go out of your way to compliment them. That will make a tremendous difference on their perception of you. The other thing you want to keep in mind is you want to put things in the running to format, not the running from format, right? The answers to avoid, I have, I want out because. As soon as you start talking about anything that's a reason on why you're leaving that particular company, It's hard to talk about a reason you want to leave that's positive. I wanted to leave because everybody was just so great to me. I had to get out of there. All right. So there's really nothing you can say. So whatever your reason for leaving is, you need to flip that to the why you're looking for a new position. So I needed to get out of there because it wasn't a good fit with their management style and how they wanted to run the business, and how I'm looking for a very structured organization that it sounds like this is, which is why I was so excited to be here today. So focus on why you're interested in the company that you're going to. Okay, so, yes.
Well, what I wanted to ask you, like in my situation, what if I say I took early retirement because I wanted to focus on doing something more challenging?
Okay.
Is that acceptable with when you can expand further?
I took early retirement. He says, what if I said, I took early retirement because I wanted to work on something more challenging? There's a slight backhanded insult in. I wanted something more challenging because that place was awful. You see what I mean? Kind of the subtext there. I took early retirement. They presented me with the opportunity to take early retirement, which I thought would be a great opportunity for me to find a new challenge. I've been there for X amount of years, and it was a great place to work, but that gave me a wonderful opportunity to find something even better.
Right, because I was with the company for 17 years.
There you go.
And basically doing the same position.
Right. So I wanted to find another opportunity like this one,
Okay.
showing specific interest.
Okay, sure.
Other questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Actually, my company, after working 3 years, got by out-of-state company.
Okay.
And I got the laid off. They were re-engineering, and I lose my job. I love my company. It's always that's what I done in the last 3 years.
Okay.
A lot of achievement. So how do you whether you answer this way is okay because they know that company got.
Absolutely. But what you just said there was very positive. You know, I was with a company for a year or 3 years. I did
3 years.
3 years. And I loved the company. I loved what I was doing. I had a lot of great accomplishments when I was there. Frankly, if they were still there, I'd still be there. But they were bought out by another company, so I didn't have the opportunity to stay, and now that gives me an opportunity to use my talents to a new company like this one. That provides a lot of value, if you can say that. Yep, absolutely, yes.
Is it okay to say something negative about the industry when you came out of that?
No, absolutely not. And I'll tell you what, right now, you're going to go into networking after this. Please don't stand up and say, I was in the mortgage industry and we all know what happened there. It's all. That happens at every one of these things. You've got to stay positive because you don't know who everyone else in this room knows. And they're going to think to themselves, do I want to recommend that person or do I not? They may have a lead, but it seems like kind of a complainer. I don't want to send a complainer over there because if I'm going to recommend you, my name's on you. And that's going to affect me if I recommend you, type of a thing. So I really would avoid that if at all possible. I'm looking for another opportunity in a new and exciting industry, which is a positive way of saying the same thing. Right? What else? Yes.
Do interviewers ever follow up on that, saying this is my new production? Of course, is it what was going on?
Sure.
How do you that?
Well, what was going on that caused that reduction in force? I mean, what I'm recommending is obviously just to be honest, you know, with what's going on. There was a reduction in force because of, you know, the economy's facing some challenges. You know, our industry's facing some challenges there. Unfortunately, their finances weren't in a great scenario to continue on through this particular marketplace. But the nice thing about this is it gives me an opportunity to find a new challenge like this one. Keep focusing back and put a cap on it with why you're interested in the new opportunity. And with all of these tips I'm going to give you, you will not find anywhere in here misrepresent yourself, misrepresent your skills, lie to them about your background. It's never okay to lie in an interview or on your resume. It's pointless. They're going to find out at some point, and now you're stuck there with a bunch of people you just lied to. So you want to be open and honest through the whole interview process. Yes.
What about the company? This is a confidential description.
Yet. You want to make sure with recruiters, they do not submit your information without telling you who the company is. There's a lot of recruiters out there. Well, there's a lot less recruiters out there right now because of the current economy. But with recruiters, there's really good recruiters out there, and there's really some not so good recruiters out there. If you don't know where you're being submitted, the danger is, what if you then send your resume in yourself directly? Now your resume is in from 2 different sources. They're not going to want to fight about who gets the feed. They're going to throw your information out. So say, absolutely, you don't want to tell me the company name right now, that's fine. But before you submit my information to them, I need to know who it is. And it would almost be worth, it's your call, but to me it would be worth not letting them submit my resume somewhere that I don't know about. You know what I mean? So you really need to pick out good recruiters. An easy way to do that, look them up on LinkedIn, see how many recommendations they have. Are they all from their coworkers and they got them on the same day? Or are they spread out from a lot of different people from a lot of different industries? That will tell you just very quickly whether it's quality or it's not. But I'm getting sidetracked. There's the answers you definitely want to avoid. Somebody asks you, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? First off, you don't want to come back and tell them, well, hopefully 5 years from now, I'm going to be running my own company. Or hopefully I'm going to be living in Arizona or in California, or anything that says, I certainly don't want to be working for you. That is a bad answer. All right, which a lot of people use and say. You know, what are you looking for, or where do you see yourself 5 years from now as I'm interviewing the administrative assistants? Well, hopefully I'm going to be a teacher somewhere. Okay, well, I need an administrative assistant. Who's going to be here? So you won't really want to focus on that particular spot. But what do you guys normally say? Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Can I get a standard answer from somebody on what you use?
Hopefully helping this company to higher growth than they are right now.
Okay.
Continuing to contribute to the growth of this company.
Okay. Contributing to the growth of this company down the line. Again, where do you see yourself? What about when they ask you, where do you see your career path going? What do you want to be doing 5 years from now? Larry.
I got a job at a company, and in the interview process, I interviewed with the guy who hired me. Interviewing with his boss, he said, where do you see yourself in security? And I said, potentially sitting in your chair.
Okay. Okay.
And that was not a negative to him because he also wanted to go up. So
Okay.
he saw that as a positive.
Okay. So he came back and said, sitting in your chair, I want your job, which sometimes that works well. It depends on who it is. The thing is, you more often than not, you don't know who you're talking to, and all of a sudden that says, ooh, this guy's a threat. You know, which more often than not, excuse me, that could be seen kind of as a negative comeback. But, you know, if it worked well for you, it worked well for you. The one thing with this particular question, they're really only looking for those two answers, not giving them. They want to make sure that you want to be there and you want this job. But if you take nothing else away from this conversation here this morning, this is the most important part of every interview that you possibly can go on. Make sure you show specific interest in them. All right, rather than hopefully I'll be contributing to a company somewhere, helping them grow. Hopefully I'm going to be furthering my skills, expanding my experience level, and maybe grow into a management position down the line, someplace. Add on to that within a company like this one, because it's in the financial industry and I've always wanted to work in the trading industry. And you know what? You're about 5 miles from my house, which is a great commute range for me, so I can get here a little bit earlier. It won't take me as long to get home after a long day. And because of giving them a laundry list of reasons why you would be interested in that specific position. And I'll give you a very, very bizarre analogy, if you can bear with me just for a minute. I promise it's going to make the point. And Mary Ellen, I'm going to use you in this example if that's okay. Let's say hypothetically there were two guys that wanted to take you to a dance. Okay, and hypothetically you're available to go to this dance. The first one walks up and says, Mary Ellen, I hear that you are just the best dancer in town and you're just such a nice person. It would be a blast if you would go to this dance with me. Would you go? And then the second person walks up and goes, you know what? There's this dance across town. I really don't care who I go with. I hear you didn't have a date. You want to go? Okay. Yeah, obviously, you're going to be drawn to, I would assume, you would be drawn to the first person, right? Unless you wear a mask. Yes, exactly. But here's the parallel, though. You've got two job seekers. Both of them have the same background, the same experience, the same salary, the same everything, but one of them really wants this job because it's in the financial industry, because it's so close to home, because they've heard so many great things about the management team. The other person just wants to work up into management someplace. They don't care where. You've got an open job, they'll take it. That's going to tip the scales in your favor 10 out of 10 times. You've got to find a way to show specific interest in that interview. If they don't ask you, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Icebreaker. Do you have any trouble finding the place? Nope, not at all, because you know what, I was really interested in this position, so I knew the route really well. You want to find ways to show specific interest in this company. That will make a humongous difference. So if you write anything down, that's the thing to write down from today. That's the most important part of this whole piece. Okay? So now what if they ask you, how much money are you making? And how much money do you want to make? Does anybody have a standard response? Please don't give me a number. Okay? Last position? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, I totally agree with that. Give them a number. But here's what you can do to give yourself a better offer. Okay? If you were making, for example, $60,000 and you had a $7,000 base, right? I would come back and tell them, I'm making $67,000 and here's how it breaks down. Don't forget the and here's how it breaks down, because then they'll think you're lying to them. I'm making $67,000. Here's how it breaks down. It's a $60,000 base plus there's a $7,000 bonus that comes on top of that. In addition to that, I have a 401k plan that my company matches 20% on. And I've got a tuition reimbursement plan. And my company pays 50% of my benefits. And lay out every piece of your compensation package, because what you're doing by doing that is, let's say the top of the range was $68,000, right, for that base. First of all, the first number they hear is going to be the number they feel they need to beat. When somebody says, how much are you making, they're asking you, how much do you think you're worth? You want to give them the big number first, because that's the number they want to beat. But then give them everything else, because if the top of the range is 68, you're at 67, that's not a very big jump. But if you let them know all these other little bits and pieces are very important to me, you're giving them creative ways to give you a better offer. Because if they can pay 100% of your company benefits, that's extra money in your pocket. You will realize more income on a monthly basis, even though the salary is only $1,000 more. If they have a better tuition reimbursement plan, if their company matches 50 cents on the dollar instead of 20 cents, you're giving them creative ways to give you a better offer. All right? Yes?
Would it be good to include a number of weeks vacation?
Yes, absolutely, everything. Identify your entire package. And I get 4 weeks vacation, and I get this number of personal days, and I get this, and I get that. Yes, Don?
Well, I've seen the companies actually in lowball. You say, I'm paying $40,000 a year. We go ahead to 35, we'll say, we'll do the next case there.
Well, it's with that piece of it, and that it's a great segue into the next question here. I appreciate that. You really need to pay attention to when that question's asked, and I'm going to jump back to that in just 1 second. I want to grab this one other question. Yes. Hmm? Yes, you. I'm sorry. Okay, that's trouble because it's a large jump down, or you need a large jump up. So I'm going to hit both of these subjects real quick. First off, and I'll...
Yes. I just say everything for what you say, what my salary and all benefit.
Right.
But say you are my out of target. I have a tried whatever the...
Right.
And you are out. So what do you think? I say, no, can you tell me the range that I can meet you? And that's the way I answer, because right now everybody knows that they are not paying. It's the employer market. So right now you can negotiate lower. That need and go. And it will happen.
Okay. We're going to touch on that. We're going to touch on that here quickly. I'm going to start with where we started with Don. What if they start trying to negotiate with me? The first thing you want to pay attention to is when. When is this conversation happening? They say, how much do you want to make? So what if they ask that? Well, if they're asking at the very beginning of the interview, they've got a form they need to fill out. They're looking for a way to screen you out at the very beginning. Okay, which at that point, what I would recommend is trying to defer that conversation. Say, you know what, I really, since we just started talking here, I know very, very little bit about this position. It would be difficult for me to give you an educated response to what number you're looking for. Is there any way we can defer that to the end of the interview? And I'll be glad to talk to you about it then, but if we can just hold off for right now. So if you can defer, I would recommend you defer, and then if they come back to it, that means they're interested. Now we can start potentially negotiating. You want to get them to tip their hand whether they're interested at the beginning, because then you've got a little bit of leverage. If they're interested, they have to go through, from their perspective, yeah, there's a lot of people out there. They don't want to have to go through all those people. If they've got somebody right in front of them, they want to make it work. And if you're that somebody, you've got a little bit of leverage. All right, but that conversation needs to happen at the end of the interview, because they're not going to talk about it there unless they are interested. All right, yes, Mike.
Following up on what you just said about getting more information about the position before you can answer that second question, how much do you want? Well,
right.
It's hard for me to say until I learn more about the position. The fact of the matter is, would it be considered confrontational almost to say something to the effect of, well, again, I'm not, the bottom line is whether I'm actually even qualified. I mean, if you feel I'm a fit for the position, because if I am a fit, I'm sure we can work out a reasonable compensation. If I'm not, it really doesn't matter what I want.
Right. I would keep it, did everybody hear that?
Yes.
Okay. I would try to keep it more pleasant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm trying to just
Right.
that's not how I would say
Right,
it.
yeah, but when you talk about it, it doesn't matter whether, it's going to depend on whether I'm qualified or not. That's saying, this is more up to you whether you're interested in me, but you know what, this is a two-way street. You need to create the impression of scarcity in that you might not be the right fit for me. I'm not looking for just any job, I'm looking for the right job. Not saying that out loud, I don't recommend you say that, but when you say, what I was hoping to find out a little bit more about the position, let you find out about me, let's see if this is going to be a good fit. That says I'm in control, I'm not going to just take any offer you give me, right? That's my, hey, it's time to be quiet, Paul. But I've got about 15 more minutes. So what I would recommend here with that is defer to the end, and then a couple of different options. If you have a recruiter and you're working with a recruiter, your recruiter, my job is to negotiate your salary for you. I'm your agent. So tell your agent exactly what you're making and how much you're realistically looking for. I can't go negotiate on your behalf if you don't tell me, right? So if you have a recruiter, your first response, and in both cases, you want to still use this as an opportunity to show specific interest in that company. So you know what, for me, it's more about the opportunity to work at a company like XYZ company because of all these reasons. I'm sure if you like my skill set, you'll make me a fair offer. Sure, if you like my skills, you'll make me a fair offer. Then they ask again, all right, that's nice. I'm sure some recruiter just told you that. Give me an answer. Okay, just like the gentleman up front had just said, great way to avoid answering a question. If you ever ask a salesperson, a good salesperson, the question they don't want to answer, they're going to answer your question with a question and put it back on you, which helps them to divert answering that question, puts the asker of the question on the defense. So, well, if you really need a number, what would you pay someone with my experience? I would not ask for a range. I would just ask, what would you pay someone with my experience? And if anybody in here often gives a range, well, I'm looking for anywhere from 60 to 70. Look at this from the buyer's perspective, all right? They're going to hear the low number there. You know, if you go to the store, you take an item to the front counter and say, okay, I'd like to buy this, and the person behind the counter says, well, I'll give you, you can pay me anywhere from $10 to $20 for that. I might give her 11 for saying that, but I'm not giving her 20, right? So you want to be conscious of that without giving a range. How much would you pay someone with my skill set? And if they ask again, and again, this is with a recruiter, you know what? I was just here to find out as much as I could about the position today. I was under the impression my recruiter was going to handle that conversation for me. So I'd like to just keep talking about where we're at, right? Default to your recruiter. If you don't have that recruiter, this is where you're identifying when that conversation's happening, and then use what you were making. I'd like to make a slight increase or a slight, you know, I obviously like to get fair market value. This is where I was. I'd love to improve on that. All right. If you're looking to make a large jump up or a large jump down, just like Sandy did, if you heard her example, She started out with all these reasons why she's interested in the job first. Your motivation can't be money. Whether you're trying to make a jump up or you're trying to make a jump down, you want to talk about the reasons for the interest in the position first. So you know what, I've been in a school district for the last 6 years and I've really enjoyed it there. However, I'd like to get closer to where my market value I think is, because I think it's passed me by a bit. Or you're trying to make a step down. I realize the financial limitations with this particular position, but the reason I'm interested is because it's in the suburbs and my old position was downtown and I'd rather be in the suburbs because I know that I built up a lot of equity with that other firm because I was there for so long. I'm open to starting at the bottom and working my way up again. Make your motivation about something other than money first. Okay, two things with that. Could everybody hear him? Okay. Two things with that. First, which was very important, you're asking for the budget, which I recommend you do, but still I would show specific interest in them first when they ask this. Then as your comeback, well, can you tell me about your budget? And then the comment you made, and I don't even think you really, let's see if that fits in with my bottom line, which implies you have to know your bottom line before you go in, which is imperative, which I know a lot of people don't think about that. This is the ideal that I want to go after. This is what I need to pay the bills. And you got to know those before you go in so you know when you have to walk away, which is very, very important. The other thing is, now I've heard this at least 3 times here today, that all these people out here, these companies, they know that they can just, there's a lot of people out there, they can hammer me down on the salary. So, you know, I know I'm going to have to take a cut. You're making an assumption. Don't make that assumption. Go in with the optimism of Jackson a few slides back. And go in with the assumption of this company is a quality organization. They're thriving despite the economy, and they're going to be able to pay me what I need. Don't immediately go in there assuming, I realize the economy's tough, go ahead and give me a cut. Because you're going to get a cut. Right? You want to go back in. Keep in mind, I'm still in business. They're not only looking for people to hire, they're paying me 30% of the salaries to go and find you. You know, I mean, that's a recruiter's fee is 30% of picture whatever salary it happens to be. That's the fee they have to pay to use me to go find somebody. If they're willing to pay me a fee to go and find you, they're probably willing to pay you what you need to make. So I would steer clear of that. Nobody's willing to pay right now because that's a poor assumption. Yes.
Would it be a good strategy to look at the financial trends of the industry that they're in to see if the industry is kind of, you know, in a shift of downsizing,
right,
shift of higher competition?
Checking the financial trends of the industry.
Around is, you know, we're all in a situation where economics are different.
But each company is doing very differently. You know, like I said, I placed 27 people in the trading industry. Well, Morgan Stanley isn't doing so hot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a few others that are not doing as well, even though the industry is doing well. You know what I mean? So it's going to depend on that particular company. So, yes.
Are companies thinking down the line when the market suddenly gets better and then it will pay you low votes and you go somewhere?
I don't know if everybody heard the question or not, but I'm just going to share with you the first few words of the question, and then I'll answer it from there, which were, aren't the companies thinking, we don't need to go any further than that. We don't know what they're thinking. We have no idea what these companies, each individual company is thinking something totally different. You know, I have one company, at one time earlier this year, I had 5 .NET development positions, 5 of them, for the exact same person. One of them was paying $105,000. Another one was paying $95,000. The other one was paying $85,000. Another one was paying $63,000. The other one was paying $55,000. I would have sent the exact same person to any one of those companies because it was the same description. But each one of those companies has different situations going on. They're more profitable, less profitable. Some companies want to price you out of the market so you can't leave. Other companies want to lowball you and take you while they can, and then you're going to leave them in a year. You don't know company to company to company. There's no way you can make a blanket statement, this is what companies are thinking. You need to go into each one of them assuming this is a quality organization. So I'm going to keep rolling. I know there's some more questions here. Closing the interview, I will say you want to ask them a closing question. It's a yes or no question. This is going to seem like a bold question, but what I recommend is asking them this one versus the other ones. Given everything that's discussed, does it look like I'm a good fit for the position? That's a yes or no question. A lot of people are now thinking, that must be one of those things he was talking about that I could not say in an interview. Versus saying, are there any concerns about my background that you'd like to go over before I leave? In other words, would you like to stomp all over my feelings before I go? My wife walks in and says, does this outfit make me look bad? No, honey, no. No, you look great. You're going to get, your questions that you're asking give you the rebuttals, the objections that you're getting back. In sales, if you're getting the same objection over and over and over again, it's because of your pitch, not because all these people just seem to have the exact same problem. It's something you're doing. So you want to give them a legitimate chance to say yes or no. So if they say yes, great. What's the next step? Because I'm very interested in the position. All right, find out what the next steps are. Speak the words, I'm very interested in the position. Just because you're showing all this interest and you think you're exuding all this interest, people are people. They're not going to pick up on your nonverbal skills all the time. You want to speak those words, I'm very interested in the position. If they say maybe, well, I got to sleep on it, I want to think about it, I got to flip a coin, we got more people we got to talk about or talk to, great. What's the next step? Because I'm very interested in the position. Now, by asking this question, you're giving them a chance to say no. No, you are not a fit, please get out. All right, which is obviously not what you want to hear, but at this point, you've got nothing to lose. Chances are very good you're never going to see this person again for the rest of your life. Right? You're not going to get the job, nothing to lose. You want to find out why not. Very easy way to do that is, I'm curious what makes you feel that way. Because if it comes down to a skill that you have that they don't know you have, this is a way to get that out in the open right now while you're still sitting there in front of them, not trying to do it through a thank you note later. The biggest killer of salespeople is that you cannot overcome an objection you do not get. This is how you get the objection. Give them a real chance to say, no, you're not a fit. Okay? So we kind of rushed through a few of these topics here today, and quite frankly, even if we got through all of them in detail, we just barely scratched the surface of what you really should be knowing about these interviews prior to going in. I put together an audio program not too long ago. It's 4 discs. And it's a 4.5-hour course on everything you need to know about interviewing, from the pre-interview questions and preparation through questions to ask throughout the interview, questions you shouldn't ask, how to negotiate, how to handle age discrimination, how to handle illegal questions, how to follow up, how often to follow up, everything you can think of when it comes down to interviewing. I'm going to raffle off 2 of these here today. And the reason we're going to raffle off 2 of these is because, and there's a catch with it if you win. First off, please don't accept it if you don't think you're going to use it, because somebody in here will use it. But the catch is that you've got to send me an email. Let me know when you land the job, because this has helped you. I did this down at Orland Hills. The guy had never been to a job club before, senior marketing manager, mid-6 figures salary, won the program, had been out for 8 months, came back to the very next month's meeting and said, hey, I found a job because of this program. Raffled it off again. The guy who won it that night brought it back to the next meeting the next month because he had gotten a job because of this program. I would love to start another chain like that. So you got to send me an email if that's okay. And I know several people in here have already had it, like Barb and a couple others. Talk to them about it. Make sure it's good. And if you don't win it, you can just go to drivestaff.com/getmoreoffers and you can buy it online there.
Excellent presentation.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Paul, thank you very much for coming out today. Appreciate it. Well done. Keep up the good work. Yeehaw.
I want to buy one.